Hi, it's Meg from Cozy and Obsessed, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about gaming. Well, specifically video gaming. So I'm not a typical gamer. When I have free time, I usually am recovering from work or creating content for social media, like now, or reading. So video games never have really fit into my life in a comfortable way. Lo and behold, I'm a cozy gamer. Surprise! The games I've always gravitated towards were ones that had natural connections to things I love, like books and movies and television shows. I crushed it on games like The Lord of the Rings Return of the King on the Nintendo GameCube or Legends of Zelda Wind Waker, because it made me kind of feel like a badass as I was able to kind of understand the combat mechanisms and fight my way through the more difficult levels. Also really favored games like Cooking Mama and other games like The Sims or Pokemon because it was very familiar and easy to anticipate what the expectations would be. Also, they were low stakes games. You're not gonna die, your team isn't gonna lose, and you're not going to fail the mission. Outside of those games, I really only participated in gaming as a form of community building, playing games like Mario Party or playing games like Animal Crossing because they were the hit cool game at the time. I personally struggled with games that were first-person shooter type games or that were very violent, dark in terms of lighting and coloring, because it was just really hard for me to get my bearings, and I tended to feel immense amounts of anxiety and pressure when games should be fun and enjoyable. But then I discovered Harvest Moon. And boy, has that game been my favorite game for a very long time. It was my very first farm simulation, storyline driven simulation that wasn't like The Sims, and it stuck with me for a really long time. In fact, I have played other iterations of the games on newer systems just to see if it captures the same essence that I loved. And truth be told, it does, but I've outgrown that in terms of simplicity when it comes to game mechanics. Console gaming itself has always been challenging for me because I wanted to buy these types of things myself. So once I saved up enough babysitting money, I was able to buy my very first Game Boy Color, and it was the purple one. Prior to console gaming, I was a computer gamer. But again, growing up as a millennial, we only had one computer, and those games could not use the internet as we still had to use the internet or the phone service. So the games I played on the computer largely consisted of The Sims, and there are several expansion packs that came out at that time, Roller Coaster Tycoon, and SimCity. All games that did not require the internet, and you could literally get lost in them for hours on end with no fear of failing a level or having too many guys die or screwing over a friend through co-op. None of that. It was completely independent and did not tie up any resources for the people else in my home. Like everything, teenage life got busy and gaming kind of fell by the wayside for a really long time. I sold off most of my games and my console and really went to college without much gaming experience after that point in time. In fact, I remember getting rid of The Sims specifically because it took up so much room on my laptop that I needed for actual college work. In 2015, my fiance, who is now my husband, and I moved to Hawaii for my very first teaching job. In doing so, we effectively cut ourselves off from everyone we knew and all of our family. And that created quite an isolating environment, especially because a lot of the culture on the islands is very family-centric. I'm the added issues of not really having community or family around. My husband and I became quite isolated and a little bit depressed. Don't get me wrong, we were adopted by several families and made some great lifelong friends, but not having your own family around is very, very different. So what did we do? We turned to gaming. This is when we actually discovered Stardew Valley. Yes, the miraculous genius creation of Concerned Ape. At the time, Stardew Valley was only available on computer. It once again didn't require the internet, and you could put in hours on end with this game. And we did. I don't even want to tell you the number of hours I had on my first save file because it's actually pretty impressive given the fact that he and I both worked full-time jobs. But this is what we did when we weren't feeling up to socializing or going out into the sun. Stardew Valley was really important to us. It was again, low stakes, cozy. It was something that he and I could talk about when we discovered Easter eggs and tricks and things that we didn't know. And because it was brand new, there weren't a lot of cheats or walkthroughs or tutorials. You just had to discover it on your own. Feeling encouraged, my husband suggested I also try World of Warcraft, which at the time was something I didn't really know much about outside of a couple of commercials and references in popular television shows like South Park. I started playing World of Warcraft right when Warlords of Draenor was wrapping up because the newest expansion of Legion was about to drop. So I got to play a little bit of the past expansions like the Mist of Pandaria, but then got to start Legion with everyone else and get really into it. And for a number of years, that was our go-to game. We still put Stardew Valley into rotation, but we focused a lot on World of Warcraft because it required a community and collaborative component. There were elements of things I could play by myself, but I sometimes needed to hook up with my husband via the internet so that he could help me through a particularly bad raid or boss fight. And wouldn't you know it, the character that I played over the next 4 expansions was a character who loved to forage for herbs, loved to pocket and loot as much resources as possible, liked to create potions and create salves and complete first aid quests and herbology quests and all of those types of things. My girl just loved to hop on a mount and go running around looking for fish, looking for herbs, and that was it. What does that tell you? Is that I'm a cozy gamer. Combat was fun and I did get pretty good at it, but it wasn't what drew me to the game. What drew me to the game was the fantasy element of being able to escape into another world, have control over the customization and how I played, build a backstory and a character arc in my own head for why my character was a part of the mission or a part of the campaign. But I got to spend the time doing what I like to do, which is some of the monotony and boring, but really, really, really exciting aspects of the game for me. I loved being able to create something new because I grinded it out and got all of the materials that I needed. To be honest, we played World of Warcraft for quite a few years. It was actually one of the main reasons we survived COVID, in that we couldn't interact with our friends, but we could play with our friends online. We also finally got our hands on a Switch, and it was very exciting because Animal Crossing had just come out and we wanted to know what everybody was going on about. So enter Animal Crossing, another game that we put countless hours on, designed the best island, had countless visitors come and live there and also move, and we did it all of it, from the beginning to the very end. And once the world opened up again, COVID kind of made us feel like we needed to utilize this opportunity to interact with people and get away from the computer. So WoW and Animal Crossing kind of fell off our radar for a number of years after that. And it was okay. You know, when my husband finally canceled our subscriptions to WoW, it was a difficult time in that we felt like a piece of us was walking onward. But at the same time that we wanted to lean into other things like hobbies, I wanted to get back into reading, and we looked back on that time very fondly. Then we come to late 2023 or 2024, I can't even remember exactly when my husband wanted to buy a PlayStation 5. There was a new Star Wars game coming out on the market, Outlaws, if you're curious. Not having a lot of experience with the PlayStation controller specifically, I was really nervous to play any games on it because a lot of them seemed combat heavy, and there didn't seem to be a lot of simulations or cozy games available for someone like me. But as work got more busy and I found my love of reading again, I kind of pulled away from gaming. And I went through long stints of not playing and then playing nonstop and then not playing. During Christmas last year, I discovered the My Time at series. I particularly liked My Time at Sandrock, and I'm looking forward to the next installment, which should come out later this year. It was, again, another one of those games where you are a newcomer, you're coming to a town, it needs help, you need to build relationships and skills in order to uncover the mysteries that surround the town and also save the town from abandonment. It was really fun, and I got into it for a couple of weeks, but then again, life happened and I moved on, and I haven't touched it since. So when I found out that there was going to be a Lord of the Rings cozy game, Tales of the Shire, I was 100% in. Give me living in the Shire on my bingo card at any point in time. In fact, frequently, since becoming a bookstagrammer and making more content and interacting with followers, a lot of times other creators ask the question, what mythical creature or mythical race do you most identify with, or would you ever be? And I frequently answer, Hobbit. I want to be a Hobbit. I don't want a dragon. I want to be a Hobbit. That's it. I want to be a Hobbit. I just think that their lifestyle really gels with who I am as a person. So the idea of being able to play a cozy game where I get to live in the Shire really appealed to me. In fact, At a more recent book club meeting that I held, I asked my members to tell me what mythical creature or race they identified with. And wouldn't you know it, Emily over at Ember Reads also chose Hobbit. And also, Emma over at Rings, Wings, and Things apparently is a huge Lord of the Rings fan as well. Naturally, something about the Hobbit lifestyle appeals to a lot of cozy gamers, as well as just normal people who are looking for something that is still fantasy driven, but different from their actual day-to-day lives. My love of hobbits can really be summed up by Bilbo's quote from the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring.
Where to begin? Ah, yes. Concerning hobbits. Hobbits have been living and farming in the four farthings of the Shire for many hundreds of years, quite content to ignore and be ignored by the world of the big folk. In fact, it has been remarked by some that hobbits' only real passion is for food. A rather unfair observation, as we have also developed a keen interest in the brewing of ales and the smoking of pipeweed. But where our hearts truly lie is in peace and quiet and good-tilled earth. For all hobbits share a love of things that grow.
Who wouldn't want to be a hobbit? Just who? I love food. Food is one of my favorite things. I also, love the idea of watching things grow and living a simple but meaningful life. As the world has changed so much day to day, it's really nice to have something that I can go to that is escapism, but still also just living a normal life, getting up every day and doing normal things just in the Shire. The game released on July 29th, and I immediately bought it. Just a moment, I'm going to show you some clips of me playing the intro instances within the game. I found a lot of things that I absolutely love about the game, and a few things that are a little bit wonky that if you may be new to gaming, it might be good for you to know about them going into it. Before even pushing start, I absolutely love the title screen and the music. In fact, before the game released, I listened to a little bit of the ambient noise just to see what I would be getting into, and I love it. Cozy games typically have really nice ambience and really nice background music, but sometimes it can get a little repetitive and a little annoying, and you find yourself wanting to mute the sounds more than actually listen to them. But the Tales of the Shire has pretty calming music. It is repetitive, but it's not intrusive. You're able to find a rhythm in playing the game where the music is going on behind you, but it's not something that necessarily distracts you. In fact, it kind of reminds me of listening to lo-fi or instrumental music while you read or while you craft or do something creative. It's there, it keeps you engaged, but it's running in the background. Tales of the Shire has a really simple melody, but it's awesome because you find yourself hearing the birds chirp and the water babble in the brook, but also hearing the beautiful flute and other elements of the Shire music that Howard Shore made the most memorable music of my life. So the game starts off with your character, not really being identifiable at this time, taking a nap in the forest along a road. You are approached by a stranger who essentially triggers the start of the game. You are immediately taken into character creation, and this is the area that I found probably the most wonky and with the least amount of instructions. So it made it difficult to make choices when it related to certain body elements and personality features, given that I didn't know how it would impact gameplay. I'm used to the in-depth character creation of World of Warcraft, which has so many different elements that you can choose from that character creation can take a while, but also the very basics of Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing, where you're really just picking eye color, hair color, a little bit of body shape, and clothes. I think the hardest part about this is that given that I never played the game before, I didn't know what decisions were going to become permanent and would actually impact gameplay. That caused me to have a little bit of anxiety, in which I don't really know which way the sliding scale should go and that kind of thing. Some things to keep in mind when choosing your body type or your facial features. Most of the differences between choices are really subtle and kind of hard to see before you're actually out and playing in the game itself. I found myself kind of leaning towards the defaults more often than not, just because I didn't know how the character was going to look at different elements in the game. In fact, I should tell you that as of this video, I have actually been able to go back through another element of the game and change elements of my character's facial features and body type to better suit what I now recognize as what I want, given that I've seen them move and interact in cutscenes and talk to other characters. So don't worry, choose what feels right at the time, and just know that you can always go back and change stuff. You should also know that most of the choices as it pertains to eye color and hair color are pretty basic. You have your basic spectrum of hair colors from blonde, brown, red to black, and the same basic eye colors of blue, green, hazel, and brown. Not a lot of exotic looks coming from the Shire, but that makes sense because they're a simple people. After you finish creating your character and looking at basic clothes, you are prompted to choose your name. Now, I find this a very interesting feature because I'm used to just being given a keyboard and having to type in a name just kind of pulled out of the thin air. But not only does the game have a randomizer so that you can kind of get ideas and be inspired, but also both the first and last name sections of the name entry piece are drop downs. So you can actually scroll through and see all the names that would be appropriate for the Shire and that you might want to choose from. One thing I noticed is a lot of the names for women happen to be flowers. So I just went with a flower that is important to me and is based off another character I really love and went from there. Once you finish picking your name and you continue on, the story picks up literally exactly where you left off before character creation. Only now your character has the features you've chosen and your name is available to be presented to the stranger. The stranger offers you a ride as you are traveling from your previous home of Bree into the village of Bywater. You hop on his wagon and you drive into town, being able to take in all of the beautiful geographical elements of the game and see exactly where you're going to be living. If you hadn't guessed already, the stranger is Gandalf. He is giving you a ride into town similar to what he did for Frodo in the Fellowship of the Ring, and he drops you off just outside of your new home, and you're encouraged to go forth and explore. When you get up to your home, you'll notice that it's pretty dilapidated and in ruins. It looks like the previous owner hasn't been there for a long time, and there's a lot of work to be done. When you get to your home, you'll meet Orlo, who is essentially the town's tutorial. He will help you get around, he'll introduce you to your home, and explain a little bit more about what you'll be doing while you play the game. The primary goal of the game is to make connections and form relationships with the other hobbits. You're going to do this by completing tasks, settling arguments, helping them find things, returning lost items, and also creating and serving meals with friends over a shared table. Food is a huge element of the game. In fact, a lot of the villagers are going to give you food before you even really know what to do with it. And you're going to be constantly invited to rise to the challenge of creating delicious meals that earn you more friendship points or trigger other aspects of the game. Not only cooking, but you'll have a lot of opportunities to forage and travel around the areas, collecting materials, not only for your own crafting, but for other characters. You'll also be able to fish and interact with animals on a kind of basic level, and just be a hobbit day to day. As I said before, your hobbit hole is pretty a mess. Like there's a lot of overgrown hedges, fallen beams, blocked doorways, and so the game does provide a little bit of gatekeeping in terms of providing you information and things that you probably can't use yet, but you will be able to. On top of helping out the villagers and helping the village remain prosperous, you have to make your house a little bit nicer. And in doing so, you will unlock other areas of gardens, other rooms in your home, but you can customize every element of your hobbit hole, from the beams to the floors. It's absolutely amazing. You can customize your archways, your door, your windows, you name it, you can customize it. And a lot of the things that you're given within the first few moments of the game apply to doing those customization things as you need to. You'll also be given the opportunity to farm or garden, depending on your preference, with plots already being provided to you and weather being variable enough to allow you to not have to water your crops every single day. Stages of the game, like I mentioned, you will be talking more about meals and talking about what people like to eat. The cooking functions of the game are really interesting because if you've played simulation games like Cooking Mama, you actually have to cook the food. You'll be given the ingredients in a specific order and you have to decide how much you're going to chop the ingredients, how long you're going to saute it, how long you're going to mix it, all by being given a bar that you're trying to reach a certain point within by clicking buttons or holding buttons down. It can be a little tricky, but also this area of the game is very informative if you take the time to read and pay attention. For example, a lot of the villagers like certain types of food. They're gonna like things that are sweet or sour or salty or spicy. Different ingredients are gonna cause different things, and that includes seasoning. You can manipulate a meal however you want to try and get to what that villager wants in a variety of ways. That does take a little bit of investigation and experimentation. As I mentioned before, the village is quite big, but you have a really nice interactive map that not only allows you to identify and find where forageables tend to be, but also locate villagers and also utilize a tracking feature that is in the form of bluebirds. Let's say you need to go to a home that's really far away and you don't know the direct route. You can click the home on your map and a trail of bluebirds will lead you there throughout your journey to that location. You get turned around or a little distracted, don't worry. Look around, you'll find a bluebird and they are pointing in the direction that you need to travel. It's actually amazing because I found myself constantly getting distracted by just how beautiful the setting was and what's over there and what's over there. Another really cool feature is that if you are a person that likes to forage and collect things, look for the butterflies. The butterflies will lead you to plants and wood and other resources that you can forage that you can be used to either to trade with other villagers or you can use to improve your home. Although the game is open concept, there are some limitations and, like I said, some gatekeeping. There are areas on the map that you can't get to quite yet, and also you can only really move at one speed. You're not able to jump. There are certain areas that you can't really traverse over. The villagers follow a very specific schedule. Businesses close at a certain time, and a given day within the Shire tends to be about 20 minutes. And there are some things you have to keep in mind while you're moving around the game. I believe at like evening time or just before evening time, most of the shops close and all of the villagers go to the Green Dragon. How cool is that? You get to go to the Green Dragon. Along with cooking, I did mention that there is a fishing element to the game. It is one of the ways that you can make money pretty quickly. However, I had to read over the instructions on how to fish multiple times, including using the encyclopedia that your character has access to, and I still can't figure out how I'm successful at fishing. I don't really understand it. I push the buttons and I toggle the toggles, but I'm still not really sure why I'm able to successfully fish. So don't question it, just trial and error it and it will work. Having played a few days in the game now, I am still completely mesmerized by everything. The sounds, the animals, the graphics, the beautiful forest and hills, all the different burrows and little nooks and crannies where other hobbit holes are, and the town square. The town square is more like a circle, but it's so detailed and really cool to see them just moving around. There are a lot of NPCs that you can't interact with, but they just add to the overall environment of living in a bustling, blooming village. Overall, I've really enjoyed playing my first few hours of the game, and I do look forward to going back and playing more. But in general, the village is really happy that you're there, and they're very helpful and giving you gifts all the time. The initial storyline does move pretty well. There's like a main campaign as well as some side activities that have to do with just building relationships and solving local problems. The cool thing about it overall, though, is the game does not feel overwhelming. At any given time, you may have 3 or 4 tasks to do, one of which is the main storyline, and a lot of times it's just completing something and waiting until the next day. I find it very easygoing, slow-paced, and I haven't fucked up enough yet to be really concerned about if the game is like crap for me or not. I really enjoy it. Even though I'm not chomping at the bit to go back and play immediately, I know it's there and it's really appealing, especially after a long day, because like I said, the music, the slow pace of things, and thinking about Bilbo's words are all that really matters to me at the end of the day. Please let me know if you play the game or are looking forward to play the game. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I would love to talk about it some more. And just as a reminder, it may not be for everyone. Games like this can have drawbacks and flaws, especially for really experienced gamers or inexperienced gamers who need a little bit more support. Don't fret if it's not for you. It's okay. It's not for everyone, but I really enjoy it, and it gives me a chance to really live out my fantasies of being a hobbit. So thanks so much for watching, and if you want, like and subscribe below, and maybe we'll talk more about games in the future. Thanks, bye!